Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to look at the weekly metagame breakdown for the historic best of 3 format. We did best of 1 about a week or so ago. We'll take a look hopefully next week, just kind of see what these historic and timeless and explore. They're not the highest volume of games played. There's people who are dedicated to those formats. Historic, for example, is my favorite format, but we don't get like huge volumes of games where like standard. So we'll do them like every week or so between best of 1, best of 3 to alternate between them. So normally what we do on Untapped is we look at the metagame distribution first and then look at the win rates of the decks themselves. It's not the highest right now in terms of games played, so we're not really getting a huge amount of views that you see on the popularity today. So it just says Boros, not really much value, but Untapped will give us the deck lists and the win rates, which we'll take a look at. If you want to use Untapped to track your own win rates, link is in the video description. I'll timestamp and paste all these deck lists as well in there. So let's jump in. I'm actually going to look at the last 2 weeks worth of data. It gets us about 10,000 games. Comparatively, if we were to look, it halves it, so it's only about 5,400, so getting a little bit nicer of a population. And there's been a rise of mid-range decks. So Orzhov mid-range, so Sorin combo is the hottest hotness right now. 89% for this one. Again, some of these populations are a little bit smaller, so keep it with a grain of salt, but these are all decks that can win at a relatively high rate. So Sorin combo, Sorin, cheating to play Saint Alenda, very, very strong top end, or Vein Ripper. Interesting to see 3-3 as a split, generally do 2-4. I was playing a lot of this during the kind of qualifier month, the metagame challenge. I was playing a catch or most build of this. There's a lot of ways you can kind of take it. Emperor of Bones is a really strong card in these decks as well because it gives you the backup plan of just reanimating Alenda. Overlord of the Bailmerk helps you draw into the deck. Also lets you hit land drops between Bogart, Trawler, and Witch Enchanter. This version here has got like a blink package, so you have Skyclave Apparition as removal. Felia could blink that. You have Nowhere to Run that can be blinked. Just a repeatable removal. Dollmaker blinks all these things to get you extra ETBs. Peddler for hand hate. 6 discard effects in Inquisition and Thoughtseize. And then Fatal Push as removal. You'll also notice Mutavault in the mana base, which counts as a vampire that can either be bonus with the plus or flinged at your opponent for 3 life and 3 damage. Sideboard, Deafening Silence, anything that's kind of storming off. Lotus, sometimes mono green. It's non-creature, but it can still kind of slow them down in that regard. Duress for more cheap hand hate. Fragment, flexible removal, hits hate pieces, hits creatures. Against Affinity, it hits their lands. Stone of Erich, any of the Johnny decks, any of the Sacrifice style decks works really nice. Surgical Extraction, combo hate, stuff like that. Disruptor Flute can be named for activated abilities, as well as tax your opponent in some cases. And then Toxic Deluge as a sweeper. We then, I just wanted to show there's an Abzan variant of the deck as well. So relatively close win rate with this one here. Very similar concept with it. You have Malavant Rumble that helps you dig into the combo piece as well as helping you ramp, as well as Oath of Nissa that helps you dig. So you get that in the main board. You get Culling Ritual in the sideboard, very strong against Luris Piles, Auras, Energy, anything like that. It generates you a huge amount of mana. You have Emperor of Bones, like I mentioned, for the Grandier matchups. Drannith Magistrate, your opponent can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. Really good against Lotus, anything that's kind of cheating the zone in which it's casting, things in exile, stuff of that nature. Sphere for combo, kind of storm style decks, as well as mono green. Surgical again for combo hate, sack decks, Fragment, and then Haywire Might, artifact enchantment hate. We have Boros Auras, so this list here, pretty stock, nothing crazy with this. You're using Light Paws and of course Spirit Dancer, throw a bunch of auras on it, get really large creatures, get like kind of a toolbox with Light Paws. Really strong card land. Turn 1, Demonic Ruckus, plot it. Turn 2, Light Paws, search up Sheltered by Ghosts, and then just kind of go to town from there. You get protection with Giver of Ruins, and you have Esper Sentinel as a tax effect. Sideboard, you have Luris Companion, Reprieve for like the big mana decks, things that are looking to do sweepers, kind of big plays. Surgical, Graveyard Hate, Portable Hold, cheap removal. Pithing Needle for activated abilities, Fragment, flexible removal. We then have Mardu Sacrifice. So this is a deck where Stone of Erich is very good against. But this deck here, it is looking to use like Bombardment with the Johnny. Flip it, you got Amped Raptor that can find your pieces, but a lot of it is like an Aristocrat Sacrifice deck. draining through Marionette Apprentice, nickel and diming them. Unlucky Witness, Trap Finder help you get virtual card advantage along with like Village Rites. And then you have Guide of Souls to play with the energy package, gain you life, get you some value there. Another Lurrus Companion deck, Fragment, cheap removal, Pithing Needle, Stone of Erich for the opponent's deck, Dampening Sphere for mono green, Fracture can be used. Just a flexible spell, artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers. Juggernaut Paddler as basically a Thoughtseize style creature. And then Thraben Charm, a really flexible card, either dealing damage to creatures, destroying enchantments, or exiling graveyards. We then have Sultai. Yes, Sultai. Persist Frog, Rambling Reanimator nonsense. Oculus. Yeah, that's what it is. So you have a combo here. Emperor Bones. You can exile Ulamog, and then basically with 4 mana or over the course of 2 turns, just go into full control if you're doing it in the same turn. You exile Ulamog, bring it into play, it sees itself in exile, gets haste, and you annihilate your opponent's board. You have Psychic Frog that can help discard the effects, same with like Perforator Crab, or Croc, kind of a self-enabler, it cycles, and then it could be a sweeper. You have Oculus in here. Malevolent Rumbling is the only green card, helps you dig into the combo. Could also probably keep it like Overlord of the Baelmerk, but green gives you access to some sideboard cards. Otherwise, it's kind of like a Dimir Shell. Persist helps you as another reanimate spell. You could do like an Earth. The thing is with Persist, it will work on kind of your top end effects as well. It won't, where an Earth, it's I think uncommon as opposed to Mythic, but it won't hit these big effects. Your sideboard consigned to memory for triggered abilities, as well as colorless spells, activated abilities, stone for, like we mentioned, sacrifice decks, change the equation, red-green decks, or Lurrus piles basically counters everything in their deck. Terra Sunder can deal with a lot of hate pieces, Mystical Dispute for like the control-ish style mirrors, and then Culling Ritual, very good against, like I said, energy, stuff like that. Anything that's putting a lot of permanents, Lurrus piles, you like sweep their board, it pretty much pays for itself, and then you can maybe like cheat out one of your big things. We then have Azorius Affinity. So this one here, it's using the artifact lens, so it builds you up a affinity. So you get to cheat out things like Thought Monitor to draw you, excuse me, draw you extra cards. Same with Thoughtcast. We have Medicant Core that scales with the number of artifacts you control, and then when you have max speed, you can pay an extra mana to copy the spells that you cast that are artifacts. Portable Holes, cheap removal. You have the Retrofitter Foundry Ornithopter combo. Springleaf Drum helps accelerate. A lot of ways to flip Tamiyo in this deck, and then Tamiyo's attacks make artifacts, so they play really nicely with each other. You can turn one Emery and then start getting value in this deck. Metallic Rebuke as cheap counters, and then Capicanier as a strong top end that can go unblockable and push large amounts of damage. Sideboard, you have cheap counters with Mystical Dispute, Spell Pierce in there, Dampening Sphere for like Storm style decks. Notably with this, it will slow down your deck because you can't multi-spell per turn necessarily. You can't chain together, say, like a number of 0 cost cards. Stone of Erich for sacrifice decks, Fragment, cheap removal, Aether Spellbomb, flexible bounce spell that can be recurred with Emery. Really good against like auras, stuff like that. Haywire Might, Artifact Enchantment Hate, and then Tormont's Crypt for graveyard hate. We then go to Abzan Birthing Ritual Yawgmoth, 82%. So this deck here is looking to do the combination of Yawgmoth with 2 copies of Young Wolf, can basically just keep resetting their Undying ability. Through there, you're able to drain them out with Marionette Apprentice in play. So you kind of get that value engine going. You could draw through your deck. You also have like Prosperous Innkeeper for life gain that can keep you alive as you go through there. Halfling, Birds of Paradise for card advantage. You have Court of Calling, so you have kind of a tutor package. Haywire Might, Artifact Enchantment Hate, a Curse Marauder to kind of force sacrifice, good against like auras. Bogart Trawler for graveyard hate. Kami of Mourning, an alchemy card. So when it enters the battlefield, target creature you control, target creature in your graveyard gains. When this creature you control, when a creature you control greater mana value than this creature dies, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you can kind of create some loops, get value back from the graveyard. Renegade Rallier, when a creature dies, or like when it enters, if there was revolt, you get to bring something back. So you can either like pop a treasure to get value back, or through like the sack effect, get some value back that way there. Sideboard, some 1-ofs for tutorable effects. Skyclave is removal. Eldrami for like grind effects. This was like Elvish Chorus before. Now it's on a creature. Misery Shadow against the sack decks. They get exile. Think Stone of Erich, but in a creature form. Juggernaut Pillar for hand hate. Jarina is protection. So your humans get hexproof and indestructible. And you have this human right here in Yawgmoth that stays alive. Activated abilities, pick your poison for hate pieces, and Fatal Push as cheap removal. We then have Esper, Blink, Reanimator, Connive. So you have the Emperor of Bones, Ulamog combo. You have Baelmerk in here to kind of pull together. You have Blink things with Dedicated Dollmaker, Felia, so nowhere to run. Grim Bauble gets better. But you have Diviner of Fate, so an alchemy card, very strong one. So it enters you Connive, and then once per turn, whenever you discard one or more cards, you seek a card with the same type. So basically, say you discard a land, it'll pull a random land from your library into your hand. So you end up coming ahead. So with Psychic Frog, you can discard a card and then immediately replenish it in your hand while getting the value. This is really good with your reanimation threats. Lets you kind of curate if you get a bad draw. You can kind of, oh, I drew another Ulamog and I want something else. You could kind of get that going there. Your sideboard, Porcelain Portent, removal, and then it can come in as an enchantment, summons one of the 3 little pigs. The most notable one is a pig for 2 mana, then you can exile artifact or enchantment. Just a flexible kind of 2-for-1 value, or 3-for-1 because you get a creature as well. Lockdown for the kind of go wide decks, the aggressive decks, you can win on the top end. Skyclaver's removal, Cryoconarium for the sack decks, go wide style decks. Thoughtseize for hand hate, Surgical for combo, Spell Pierce, Cheap Disruption, and Pithing Needle for activated abilities. Selesnya Devotion, or a mono green devotion with a very, very light splash for Elesh Norn. At this point, most of you likely know this deck. You got Nykthos in here. It was very strong in like Pioneer Explorer for a while. Boosted in this format. Nykthos taps for devotion, number of pips of green. With Kiora, you can tap and tap it, generate a whole bunch of mana. You also have Fanatic of Ronus, which if you have Ferocious, a creature power 4 or greater, it taps for 4 mana, another strong effect, along with Utopia Sprawl. Generating a whole bunch of mana, you then go Karn into your wish board, and you'll see just a bunch of 1-ofs. So find you a land, Portal to Phyrexia, kind of Mass Edict effect, and then you could reanimate, Cityscape Leveler, targeted removal, Akroma's Memorial. If you can establish a large enough board in that turn, you get Memorial, you get haste for your team and evasion, and you just kill them that way. Wormcoil stops the aggressive decks. Mindslaver takes over your opponent's turn. When it's in exile, you can have subsequent copies of Karn get it back to take extra turns. Sky Sovereign, just targeted removal, kind of a sticky threat against midrange. One Ring for card advantage. Persistent Cauldron, you get it because you're going to cast the Restorative Burst, which lets you rebuy creatures, lands, or planeswalkers from your graveyard. Stonebrain for combo hate. Liquid Metal Coating can shut off activated abilities and blow up your opponent's lands by plussing with Karn. Stone of Erich, sack, activated abilities, artifact, enchantment hate, graveyard hate. We then go to Jeskai, no ETBs, the Jeskai kind of Proctor Hushbringer. So this shuts off creature ETB effects, which works really nicely with things like Null Drifter. So you don't have to sack it, you just get a 4/4 Annihilator that draws you 2 cards for 3 mana. Same with Flage, doesn't get sacrificed. You don't get the ETB effect necessarily with the 3 damage, but you just get a Flage on curve, which is very strong. You also have the ability with Stifle, Consign to Memory to stifle these triggers, and then hiding out in the mana base here. So Proctor works with this, not Hushbringer, but you can either stifle the trigger from Lotus Field or Proctor just not pay, and then you get a huge ramp in terms of your mana acceleration. There's also Dust Bowl that you can sacrifice a land to destroy lands to kind of get some value there. Fairy for the kind of grindier matchups. Wrath of Sky is really strong against energy, anything kind of going wide. Sweeper that hits enchantments and artifacts. Veto for cheap counters. Containment Priest for the Storm Piles, anything cheating into play. Yogg. Surgical for graveyard hate and combo hate. Stone of Erich again for sack. Prismatic Endy, flexible removal. Pithing Needle for activated ability. And then lastly, 4-color Sam combo. So this deck here, basically Samwise Gamgee, a way to sacrifice Bartholomew or Goblin Bombardment, and Cauldron Familiar creates an infinite loop. Cat dies, comes back into play because there's a food when it comes, when it's in the graveyard, if there's a food in play, or vice versa, you can sacrifice it if you have another food. Comes into play, then the Sam generates a food, you sack it, and then just create a loop. Either ping them with Bombardment to death, drain them out like that. You find together the combo with Trap Finder, Unlucky Witness, Amped Raptor, or Birthing Ritual, just kind of helps you dig in. Then you have kind of the fair game plan, the Amped Raptor, Johnny Bombardment package to drain out your opponent. Sideboard, you got Lurrus Companion, Remorseful Clerics for Graveyard Hate, Crawl Harpooner to deal with flyers, Fragment Reality for Artifact Enchantment, just flexible removal, and then Hate Pieces with Haywire Might. So for the week, good luck to everyone playing. Let me know what interests you most in this format, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.